Climate change is unpredictable, and as climate change intensifies, the expected increase in extreme weather events leaves the country vulnerable. Nigeria is said to be among vulnerable countries that consistently experience the devastating impact of climate change. Impact of floods have become a major natural disaster occurring annually in the country. And according to reports, this year, more than 500,000 persons have been affected by the flood. If you recall, the 2024 annual flood outlook predictions indicate that 148 local government areas in 31 states of the Federation are at risk of high flood, while 249 local government areas in 35 states and the Federal Capital Territory are within moderate flood risk areas. There were also predictions for high flood risk areas expected till November. Already the flood have continued to ravage communities and farmlands, just as farmers and affected communities are counting their losses. Despite federal government's efforts towards mitigating flooding, experts are calling for more proactive measures to mitigate the risk of flooding, such as building flood barriers, improving drainage systems, and regulating development in flood-prone areas. These are expected to build resilience in communities as key strategies in tackling flood and other disasters around the country. Now, when communities are resilient, they are better equipped to cope with disasters and minimize the impact. On Weekend File tonight, our focus is August-September flood warning and federal government mitigation strategies. Our guest is Idris Abubakar Mohammed. He's a special assistant to the Director General, NEMA. We'll bring you situation reports from across the country on how affected states are coping. Welcome. This is Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguilera. First, we'll begin with the news. President Bola Tinubu is being expected to arrive in Beijing, China tomorrow, Sunday, for his official visit. President Tinubu, who departed Abuja on Thursday, had a brief layover in the United Arab Emirates. The Nigerian leader is expected to land in the capital city of China tomorrow. And the president is slated to meet with host President Xi Jinping on how to improve the bilateral cooperations between the two countries. State House correspondent Musbahuddin Wahab reports that President Tinubu will also hold meetings with Chinese business leaders on the sidelines of the forum on China-Africa cooperation. Let's look at the health scene. In just 15 months, the federal government's health sector reform programs have attracted more than $4.8 billion investment. Vice President Kashim Shettima stated this at the inauguration of Sahad hospitals in Abuja. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila will tell us more.
This is the 200-bed capacity healthcare facility, Sahad Hospital, with over 100 medical workers. It's part of the private sector critical role in unlocking healthcare value chain.
I am overjoyed to stand before you as we gather to witness the launch of this historic health facility.
Vice President Kashim Shettima at the inauguration said supporting such investment is part of the government's comprehensive strategy to address long-standing challenges and propel Nigeria's healthcare system into the future.
As the National Economic Council, which I chair, we have prioritized investments in developing Nigeria's human capital, with health and nutrition being one of the key thematic areas. Each of our state governors is fully on board. We have all acknowledged that no nation can optimize its opportunities without investing in its health care. And for us, this is only the beginning.
I'm also urging the hospital to liaise with other NGOs that finance medical services to less privileged people so that the people of this community, particularly the indigenes of this area that have been displaced, so that we can be comfortable in Abuja, can have access to this hospital.
The present administration's healthcare sector reforms are anchored on a robust roadmap designed to tackle persistent issues that have affected the healthcare system for decades.
Today's event sends a strong message to all well-meaning Nigerians, both at home and in diaspora. We must recognize that healthcare is a collective responsibility. It is incumbent upon us all, whether in the public or in the private sector, to play our part in building a healthier nation.
We commissioned this hospital. We pledge to deliver patient-centered care with empathy and kindness, foster a culture of innovation and continuous improvement.
Partnerships with the private sector in transforming healthcare governance, improving population health outcomes, unlocking the healthcare value chain, and strengthening health security are part of reforms set out to boost domestic production of essential medical supplies and drugs, strengthen primary healthcare, and encouraging intervention, not just because it aligns with the Renewed Hope agenda, but also because of its far-reaching implications for national development. In Abuja, Abrahman Jibrila.
Still on health, drugs worth millions of naira have been donated by Sheyi Tinubu through his PET project, Maternal and Child Health Intervention Scheme, to the indigent patients at Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital, Shika, Zaria. Suraj Abdullahi reports that the initiative also inaugurated a motorized borehole in the ancient city of Zaria as part of a drive to promote water, hygiene and sanitation.
Maternal and child mortality remained a key health issue bothering both international health organizations and governments at all levels. Despite the decline of the scourge between 2000 and 2020, there remain devastating health disasters according to Integrated African Health Observatory. This could be as a result of multiple factors including lack of availability and affordability of essential medicines at the hospitals. Intervention in such areas is key to stemming the tide. Hence, the donation of free drugs worth millions of naira to indigent patients at Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital, Shika, by Sheyi Tinubu.
This initiative or intervention program is to ensure that at any one point in time in this hospital, maternal and child health care services can be rendered more efficiently.
The program has actually been going on behind the scene. We're only trying to give a formal structure to it.
Many patients do come to these hospitals without much financial capacity. But with these relief materials, it will go a long way in alleviating their sufferings.
The intervention also covers areas of scholarship, as Dr. Aisha Suleiman, a resident doctor, was supported with 1 million naira to enable her achieve greater feat. To support the drive of government towards enhancing water hygiene and sanitation, Sheyi Tinubu's intervention sank a motorized borehole at Banzazau area of Zaria City for the benefit of the community. The program continues across the country. From Zaria, Suraj Abdullahi, NTA News.
The Federal Ministry of Environment says it is concerned about a claim by protesters in Kampam community in Chukun local government area in Kaduna State that chemical effluents discharged into the environment by the Kaduna Refinery and Petrochemical Company in the last few days has adversely affected their health and livelihoods. A statement by the Minister of State for Environment, Dr. Isiaq Salako, indicates that a team headed by the Northwest Zonal Director of the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency will visit the community to investigate claims towards protecting the health of the people and the environment. In other news, rule of law and access to justice play a crucial role in restoring trust, ensuring respect of democratic values, and supporting an inclusive recovery. Citizens' equal access to justice was the focus at the roundtable agenda by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Citizenship and Leadership, Rinshola Abiola, in collaboration with line partners. Let's hear more from Deborah Balagbobo.
No, he couldn't prove it. And there were CCTV cameras in the office, over 8 of them. Like, he didn't see me take the phone. He's just alleging that I took the office phone. And my first 3 months there was hell. I was lying on the floor, bare floor, for 3 months.
The pathetic story of Nicholas Peters is one among many denied access to justice and has to spend 10 months in prison, a situation that seems regrettable. Cases like that of Nicholas has spurred the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Citizenship and Leadership to host relevant stakeholders to the Access to Justice Roundtable agenda.
And we would not be having such a thorough consultation process if we just wanted to be in this hotel and talk about something. It's because we intend to get things done.
We are very ready to partner with all the relevant organizations.
It's the problem of the middle class because they're unable to give the accessibility to those downtrodden to have access to justice.
Our participation at this event, together with all the relevant stakeholders present today, is vital for achieving this agenda.
Advocating for fairness and equality within the justice system and ensuring that everyone receive the representation and support they need.
Submissions to include use and implementation of custodial sentences, funding and empowerment of the Legal Aid Council, and the check of duplicated duties of various law enforcement agencies were made by panel of discussants. In Abuja, Deborah Balagbubo, NTA News.
Societies around the world have identified satisfactory resolution of disputes as one of the key promoters of peace in communities. Now, when aggrieved people are unable to obtain the desired judicial relief, they sometimes resort to self-help to find solutions. To this aspect, concerned stakeholders have organized a Justice Needs and Satisfaction Survey to seek durable solutions to legal challenges hindering access to justice in Nigeria. Correspondent Mina Daniels reports that the goal is to bridge the justice gap and promote deeper understanding of legal issues among the populace.
In January this year, a team of enumerators undertook a nationwide survey of the justice landscape and came up with a report detailing the needs and satisfaction of Nigerians about the justice system. Aspects of the report indicated that although challenges still remain, current judicial and administrative reforms are already yielding fruits. Noting the demands of ensuring substantial justice is granted to every aggrieved person in Nigeria, the enumeration observed improvement in prompt resolution of disputes.
We need to decentralize the judicial delivery model. And I have to say that this Attorney General, present one, and the Federal Ministry of Justice is actually looking into that. They are looking into justice, in having a justice innovation office.
Like the National Judicial Institute, for instance, are championing the diversion program where kids who are underage their cases are handled differently outside the court system.
For Imo State, what we did was the community justice center, and their most pressing justice problem is family and land dispute. So for people at the community, they will be able to walk into the community justice center. Concerned
partners are utilizing data to strengthen and scale up the process of dispute resolution. In Abuja, Mina Daniels, NTA News.
The heads of the civil service of Nigeria and that of the United Kingdom have agreed to strengthen ties that will advance civil service reforms in Nigeria. This was the outcome of a meeting between the head of the civil service of the Federation, Didi Esther Wilson-Jack, and the UK Cabinet Secretary and head of civil service, Simon Case, held at the UK Cabinet Office, London. The meeting focused on knowledge sharing and best practices to support Nigeria's ongoing reform initiatives under the Federal Civil Service Strategy and Implementation Plan that will be from 2021 to 2025, with emphasis on capacity building and enhancing Nigeria's Civil Service Week activities by drawing inspiration from the UK's annual Civil Service Live conference model. The head of the UK Civil Service says They are committed to sharing insights on civil service development while recognizing the value of learning from Nigeria's experiences, with a pledge to explore exchange programs and study tours. In other news, the Headquarters Logistics Command, the Nigerian Navy, Ogara, Delta State, has conducted a range classification and arm firing exercise at the 4th Brigade of the Nigerian Army in Benin, Edo State. Defense correspondent Ismail Musa reports on the implication of the exercise on the renewed drive by the military to further secure the nation.
Marksmanship is a critical component in the military and other security agencies, as it enhances the ability of personnel to attack the enemy position fast with precision. This 3-day range classification and armed firing exercise is aimed at sharpening the officers and ratings proficiency in weapon handling, identify areas for improvement, and an avenue to test run different arms to enhance effective deployment.
Brigade Garrison,
the flag officer commanding Nigerian Navy Logistic Command Ogara says constant training eliminates troops bleeding during operations.
During the range classification, we'll be able to identify some of our personnel that have these enhanced skills, marksmanship skills, that we could use for, 1 or 2 operations. So when we carry out this range classification exercise, we identify some of the weapons that, have problems jamming during the firings and clear them.
And to the participants, 32 officers and 150 ratings participated in the exercise that seeks to promote teamwork, a core value in the Nigerian Armed Forces operations. Ismail Musa, NTA News.
Still on security, the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Mohammed Matawale, has expressed sadness over the activities of terrorists and bandits terrorizing Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina, and Kebbi states and its environs. Consequent to this, the Minister of State has directed the Chief of Defense Staff and all the military chiefs to move to Sokoto with him as part of intensified efforts by the federal government to rid the northwest of banditry, kidnapping and terrorism. Now, this strategic move underscores the unwavering commitment of government to restoring peace and security in the region. While in the northwest, they will supervise operations and ensure that notorious bandits like Bello Turji and his gang are flushed out. A statement by Henshaw Ogubike, Director, Information and Public Relations in the ministry, says the step is in line with President Tinubu's drive to stamp out banditry in the country. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll begin a conversation on flood warnings and, of course, federal government's Thank you for staying with us. To begin the conversation, talking about flood warning and federal government mitigation strategies. We'll bring you some reports. Let's find out what's happening across the country. Now, this year alone, more than 500,000 persons were affected by flood. This comes as federal government is supporting states and the FCT with funds to manage the ravaging flood. Let's hear from Musa Baba Aliyu.
Floods have continued to ravage most parts of the country as a result of consistent heavy rainfall. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, had earlier predicted that the northeast part of the country would record an average of 418 millimeters of rain, while the south-south would have a minimum of 3,000 millimeters of rain. The National Emergency Management Agency reported that close to 200 people were killed as a result of the floods in 15 states. The 2024 flood dashboard of the agency as of Thursday, August 29, 2024, indicates that 532,600 individuals were affected in 28 states. Minister of Finance Wale Edun visited flood-ravaged communities in Kebbi State.
The National Economic Council has been proactive and has taken action in order to support all the states of the Federation and the FCT with 3 billion naira in flood action funding for them to take action to respond to and to mitigate the problems of flooding.
So I believe this will further provide support for the development of the state and indeed Nigeria.
Meanwhile, Niger Republic has alerted its citizens living along the River Niger that billions of cubic meters of water are on its way to empty into the river. The development could trigger overflow of the river and lead to another flood in Kebbi, Niger, Kwara, Kogi, and Anambra states. Investigations by the NTA revealed that the water levels at the major hydroelectric dams are rising gradually, but without any immediate threats. The dams are Shiroro, Kainji, and Jaba. Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
Well, the bitter tale of the last devastating flood in Rivers State and some parts of Niger Delta region has persisted. Regrettably, while some state governments in the south are opening up more major canals, residents are calling for more proactive measures to mitigate the effect on the victims. Robinson Derataide has a compilation of preparations against flooding in the Niger Delta region.
Between June and October, residents of Rivers State and other parts of the Niger Delta experience intensive rainfall, often leading to flooding and damage to lives and property. Poor environmental practices, non-adherence to town planning regulations, and rise of sea level results to flooding, with consequences on national assets, personal lives, property, and businesses.
The flood comes. It throws people into hardship. Their farms are taken over by the flood. Some of the houses you have to paddle in canoes to get to those houses.
Those are their ancestral homes. If you must evacuate them, there must be provisions for them to be evacuated.
Rivers State government is planning to desilt the drainages while setting up camps in safer grounds for possible victims.
We are already looking at mapping out areas within such zones, just in case, as a temporal place for the people before we know what next to do.
The low topography of Bayelsa State makes it the receiving end to flood from other areas. Government has started clearing the canals.
They are going to do a research on major flood control and erosion control in our state.
Proximity of Calabar to Lago Dam exposes about 10 LGS to flooding, but the silting of drainages is in progress. And from Akwa Ibom State, the construction of underground drainages in parts of Uyo to address the challenge is ongoing.
It has become a tourism site, so you can see. You don't know the amount of joy I have that we're beginning to create. You can come from this mess and create a message.
The people, no doubt, must also play their part by relocating in time to safer grounds and to stop turning drainages into dustbins. Robinson Derataide, NTA News.
All right, let's bring in our guests to pick up with the conversation. We have Mr. Idris Abubakar Mohammed. He's a special assistant to the Director General for the National Emergency Management Agency. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. This is a very crucial time for Nigeria, and I know the mandate of the agency is disaster management. And at this time, Mr. Omar Mohammed, a holistic coordination towards systematic flood risk management is very important. How is the agency coping with the growing impact of these floods across the country?
Thank you very much. Let me start by notifying us that by the beginning of this August, the NEMA set up an emergency operation center at the headquarters of the agency. And by the dashboard of that EOC, today, across the country, we have 145 local governments affected by floods in 28 states. 568,917 persons are affected, out of which 209,342 are displaced. They are forced to flee their homes because of this inundation.
Yeah.
81,386 houses have either been completely destroyed or are partially damaged and are not suitable for human habitation. Sadly, 190 lives have been lost. In the same vein, 2,042 persons have suffered various degrees of injuries. 107,815 hectares of farmlands are either washed away or completely inundated by floodwaters. This is the scenario as of today. And going to a question of flood disaster mitigation, is a very comprehensive, all-encompassing plan. Flood mitigation, as far as NEMA is concerned, starts with flood early warning dissemination. We are lucky that the hydrometeorological agencies we have in Nigeria, the Nigerian Meteorological Services and the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, NISA, that's NIMET and NISA, beginning of the year, they have given us the climate forecast. And NEMA has looked at this climate forecast to look at the disaster management implication and develop disaster mitigation strategies for downscaling to communities, to all the states of Nigeria, all communities at risk. But the bottom line is that early warning must be matched with early action.
I'm glad you mentioned action, Mr. Mohammed, because it is true, NEMA has always adopted the early warning alert system, going by the seasonal rainfall climate prediction. You've gone to these communities as part of your preparedness mechanism. What were some of the bottlenecks, the agency encountered towards taking action?
Yeah, the bottlenecks are many, they are multidimensional. You see, disaster management architecture in Nigeria and anywhere in the country is bottom up.
Yeah.
As we always say in NEMA, every disaster happens in a particular community, in a particular local government, in a particular state. So ideally, the first responder should be in that very community before external support comes in from the state capital or from Abuja.
Yeah.
Mercifully, in the past couple of years, every state of Nigeria has set up a functional state emergency management agency, SEMA. Because the law that set up NEMA made provision for state emergency management agency at the state level and local emergency management committee. So if disaster hits, the first responders to save lives and restore normalcy are from that very community. When the local capacity is overwhelmed, the state SEMAs bring assistance. When state capacities are overwhelmed, NEMA from the federal government provides the stopgap. In a situation whereby a disaster is so catastrophic, Nigeria cries out to the international community and seeks for support. It has happened in 2012, even 2022, we had external support. So that is the architecture. I'll give you an example. When you look at the present scenarios, the northern states of Nigeria now are experiencing heavy floods, heavy inundation. As of today, the worst hit states are Bauchi, Zamfara, Sokoto, Jigawa, Niger, irrespective of affected persons. Irrespective of human displacement, it is Sokoto and Bauchi. Lives lost is Jigawa and Kano. A week ago, our zonal office in Kano requested for the mobilization of search and rescue officers from the Kano Territorial Office to Jigawa State. The deployment of water treatment equipment. We have mobile water treatment plant.
Okay.
It's like a waterworks on wheels. You deploy it to any community affected by disaster. You take raw water anywhere, and there you are. You provide water to the communities.
Okay, Mr. Mohammed, I'm glad you're mentioning the statistics of people being displaced and affected communities. We're seeing the heightened vulnerability of this flood across the country. We want to know what NEMA is doing at this time. We'll pick up when we come back from the break.
Thank you very much.
Look at how Lagos is faring. Well, stakeholders in environmental conservation, both in public and private sectors, are calling for a more sustainable and innovative approach towards early warning systems to prevent flood hazards and disasters. Now, for a coastal state like Lagos that is sometimes affected by rising sea levels, this emphasis is crucial. Let's get details from Larry Belay.
Stories of devastation caused by flood are making headlines. According to the recent NEMA flood dashboard, 28 states have so far been adversely affected. Although Lagos is having some sort of hiatus at the moment, its low-lying topography still makes many communities vulnerable to the effects of rising sea levels, aggravated by other human factors.
This is not the time to start preparing for such flood. We all have responsibilities to ensure that when the flood comes, it doesn't take us unawares. First of all, by preparation. People must learn how to live on areas that are not floodplains.
The waves are a lot stronger. The breezes are a lot faster. As a result, the erosion has increased tremendously. However, the good news is that we know the solutions. We've proven it with the Eco Atlantic.
The Lagos state government has adopted an approach that includes advocacy and early warning systems that target communities.
Our environment is well protected, and we don't leave a very bad Lagos for our children and people to come. We can immediately tell that an environment that you're not deliberate about will go to shambles.
Environmentalists and other stakeholders are now canvassing for restoration of mangroves destroyed by rapid urbanization. In Lagos, Larry Bilayi, NTA News.
Torrential rains, presence of large water bodies such as Goronyo Dam, Sokoto and Rima rivers have contributed to the devastating floods recorded in Sokoto State. A water resource expert maintains that mitigating the effects requires provision of more hydraulic structures, afforestation and artificial levee to protect communities from future occurrences. Bashir Ibrahim Nababa reports.
Report by the Sokoto State Flood Control Committee indicates that 14,940 houses and property worth millions of naira were destroyed by flash floods in 1,341 villages across Sokoto State, rendering many families homeless. Also submerged were 11,390 farmlands and a combined total of 300 art dams and ponds. The level of destruction is such that only 1 out of the 23 local government areas of the state was so far spared. Besides, effects of climate change, abundant water resources, and erosion, among other natural factors that influence the level of the devastation. Human activities such as indiscriminate erection of buildings and dumping of refuse on waterways contributed to the disaster.
Most of these dams are constructed as a flood protection mechanism. Some of them are for irrigation and water supply. So once there is excess discharge of water from the dam and the rivers, and there is a dam that failed, you have to know that those areas will get flooded if there are a climate change like what we are experiencing this time around.
The Flood Control Committee that embarks on a fact-finding tour to flood-prone areas across the state had, on completion of its assignment, submitted its report to Governor Ahmed Aliyu for government's intervention to the victims.
We have made several recommendations, including provision to the victims of immediate resettlement facilities.
I want to assure you that government will study the recommendation, and inshallah, we will take appropriate action.
One major feature about the flood is that it neither respects nor discriminates against anybody, particularly when necessary precautions are not taken. From Sokoto, Bashir Ibrahim Nababa, NTA News.
All right, Mr. Mohammed, you've seen how states have been ravaged by the impacts of the flood. You've talked about, precautionary measures that are supposed to be taken. We've seen federal government come up with intervention funds, the 3 billion naira to states and the FCT. What action plan is on ground now? Because communities are meant to build their resilience and bring back their livelihood.
Thank you very much. You see, like we always say, Prophet Noah did not build the ark when the flood has started.
Yep.
So even before the rains started, like I said, NEM has developed early warning actions, early warning alerts, including risk mapping of all communities, all local government at risk across the country. And we have gone to every state of Nigeria to downscale these flood early warning messages, including mitigation strategies. So every local government, every state is expected to do its bits. Before the rain starts, people are expected to work together to clear refuse that is blocking waterways, drainage channels, urban and regional planning agencies. You see, the land law vested land under the custodianship of the state government. So therefore, urban and regional planning authorities are expected to not allocate plots of land along waterways, not to grant building permits for people to put houses, markets, and several other structures, because water always finds its way. And therefore, we at NEMA, our intervention starts from conducting search and rescue operations, because somebody has to be alive before you give him rice and beans and blanket. So in every military formation of Nigeria, we have the disaster response units, which are always sports NEMA, sports subnational level actors at the state and local government levels if there is a disaster. Not necessarily only flood disaster, any other disaster. It can be building collapse, it can be automobile accident. These DRUs are always there to spot. And we convene our emergency coordination forum in Abuja here, where the security agencies, the police, the civil defense, because every disaster site is a potential crime scene. And for disaster incidents, you need crowd control. So that we are doing consistently, partnering with these stakeholders to give support. Then within limitations of our funding, where people have been displaced, they are living in either in IDP camps, other temporary shelters, or living with host communities, NEMA provides necessary support. Prior to the beginning of this escalation of floods, state governments have identified safer and higher grounds where people are expected to move.
But are they moving?
In case of human displacement.
Mr. Mohammed, are they moving? Because we've had cases of where some persons in communities don't want to move when the sensitization is brought to them about the impact of the floods. They don't want to leave their ancestral homes.
I agree with you. Not only in Nigeria, even in the US, during the Katrina incidents, many people refuse to leave their homes. Number one, for somebody to leave his house, you must have given him an alternative accommodation where he lives.
Exactly.
So state governments had the responsibility of setting up IDP camps. Unfortunately, in several instances, our schools have been turned into IDP camps. And of course, that has the consequential effect of disrupting normal routine education. We have a plan for education in emergency. You can deploy technology to sustain education. But absolutely, it is correct. And let me say this. Water is like a magnet. Anywhere you see water, people are bound to live very close to that water body. Look for any open space in Abuja here. Put a water fountain. You see people congregating there. If you look at the map of the world, major cities are along the coastlines. So water bodies attract people. Yet, in times of emergency, people are expected to move away from any place that constitute hazard, constitute risk to their lives. These are advocacies that we have to consistently be doing.
Okay.
The more we are doing it, the more we are building that resilient population in Nigeria.
Okay, it's just unfortunate, Mr. Mohammed, that every year we come back on this table to discuss this issue. We just hope that in the near future there will be a durable solution to these issues. Thank you very much, Mr. Idris Mohammed Abubakar. He's the Special Assistant to the Director General for the National Emergency Management Agency. Well done. Keep up the good work. Let's get news from the global scene. The United Nations is set to begin a crucial campaign on Sunday to vaccinate approximately 640,000 children in the Gaza Strip against polio. This effort is to be coordinated during daily 8-hour pauses in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas militants, offering a narrow window for health workers to reach children in specific areas of the war enclave. Let's hear from Justin Bem Oye.
WHO officials say that over 1 million doses of the vaccine have already been delivered to Gaza and more are on the way. Health workers hope to treat over 600,000 children starting Sunday. The campaign, targeting children under the age of 10, comes in response to the recent confirmation of the first polio case in Gaza in 25 years, a baby paralyzed by the type 2 polio virus. The World Health Organization has emphasized the urgency of the campaign, noting that at least 90% of the children must receive 2 doses of the vaccine, spaced 4 weeks apart to ensure its effectiveness. WHO reveals that the vaccination drive will unfold in 3 phases, covering central, southern, and northern Gaza. During each phase, fighting is expected to pause for at least 8 hours on 3 consecutive days. Elsewhere, Gabonese Transitional President General Brice Oligui Nguema presided over a military parade and other events to mark a year since a military coup brought the curtain down on 55 years of iron-fisted rule by the Bongo dynasty on the oil-rich African country. The military parade took place on the streets of Libreville, Gabon, to mark the anniversary of the 2023 coup that ousted long-standing President Ali Bongo. Justin Bem-Unyi, NTA.
All right, sports is next, and Francisca is set to give us all the juicy details. That is, if they are all juicy. Francisca, please tell us.
Thank you, Ruth. Welcome to Sports Updates. The much-anticipated Nigeria Premier Football League season kicked off at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Stadium with Rangers International of Enugu and El Kanemi Warriors of Maiduguri playing out a goalless draw. The Flying Antelopes, who are aiming to become the first team in a decade to successfully define the league title after Kano Pillars in 2014 blew up goal-scoring opportunities, much to the disappointment of coach Fidelis Ilechukwu. Rangers are already through to the second preliminary round of the CAF Champions League. While we await the kickoff, all eyes will be on the referees, who in recent years have been on the card of enthusiasts, with more questions and answers. At a time when assault of umpires have been drastically reduced, Nigeria Referees Association President Zubairu Sani maintains that all referees who have been certified to officiate in the new season are in tune with technological innovation and latest laws of football.
Well, sincerely, we are very much prepared for them, and we have never had it like this time around, because the NTA and the journey with the Nigerian Football Federation, we had a session which they organized, but coaches, club managers, TM, and along with our instructors, to update them on the loss of the game, so that we will have a very smooth and successful league ahead, so that any decision that we will take, they will not be contrary or unknown to them.
Meanwhile, Old Trafford will host the marquee fixture of the weekend on Sunday when arch-rivals Manchester United take on Liverpool in the English Premier League. Earlier in a match that was beamed live on NTA, Leicester City complete with Super Eagles midfielder Ndidi Wilfred suffered a 2-1 loss to Aston Villa at the King Power Stadium. Goals by Amadou Onana and John Duran powered the UEFA Champions League campaigners to another victory despite a late fightback from Facundo Bonagonte goal. Well, that's it on Sport Update. It's back to Ruth.
Thank you so much, Francisca, for that update. All right, and this is where we call it a night on Weekend File. We do appreciate your company. Do have a good night rest. I'm Ruth Aguele.
To drive in the rain?
It depends on the velocity of the rain.
There's nothing better than the roar of your fans. But in Nigeria, there's a roar that may not be heard again. With fewer than 50 lions left in the wild, they could be extinct in the next few years. From loss of habitat and prey, and snares set for illegal bushmeat. Please say no to illegal bushmeat, and let's keep the roar alive for Nigeria. Poaching steals from us all.